Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Boundaries. Okay. Boundaries is, you know what they say about people, what they teach is what they need to learn. Now, I have been teaching boundaries for over 35 years, so trust me, it's not a done deal. It's a deal that I've been working with for a long, long time. It's probably one of the most important things that we do um, as human beings. All right. So, the first thing I want you all to do is I want you to think of someone in your life. And oh, does everybody have some blank paper and a pen? I want you to think of someone in your life who you find it very difficult to say no to. And what are the defenses you use? What are your default behaviors? So maybe you don't answer the phone, maybe you lie, maybe you say yes when you don't want to say yes, maybe you play dumb. Okay. So who's the someone in your life? Just pick one that you have a really hard time saying no to. And what are the defenses you use? Just take 1 minute to just write that down, just a few seconds. Take a deep breath. Okay. I'm sure you've done it by now. So now let me tell you about boundaries and what they are. So boundaries are these invisible, you can take that slide down now, Uma. So boundaries are these invisible ways, fences that we have. And we have internal ones and we have external ones. The internal ones are us speaking to ourselves, us knowing about ourselves, and the external ones are what we are doing with other people. They're invisible fences. I'll give you an example. If you want to hug, if you want to hug me, and I let you hug me, my boundary is going to be very, very small and close to me. If you want to hug me and I don't want to hug you, my boundary is going to be like this, or it should be. If I let you hug me, then I'm abusing myself by not having the boundary that I should have. You know, instead I go out of my head, or I just kind of like grit my teeth at some crummy uncle that I wish wouldn't touch me, but you know, I do one of those kind of things and just bear it. That's a boundary that's being violated, and I'm violating it against myself. Does that make sense? Is that understandable? But they're not all that serious, okay? Some of them can be very slight, but boundaries should go in and out. But you're the one that decides that. You're the one that decides to open up your boundaries, meaning you're keeping people outside, or you're moving your boundaries in, you're letting people in closer. There are three reasons why we have boundaries. The three reasons we have boundaries are to keep people from coming into our space and abusing us. We've got a slide for that, right? You've got the slide up? Okay. And then the second one is to keep people from going into the space of others and abusing them. Boundaries are to keep me from touching somebody who doesn't want to be touched by me. Boundaries can be like, you know, not saying things are hurting someone because I'm not paying attention to their boundaries. So they go in both directions. They go with me protecting myself from others, or others knowing how to protect others from my bull, you know, my bull in a china shop kind of stuff. And boundaries give, whichever one they are, out or in, boundaries give us a sense of who we are and what's important to us. And when we don't have boundaries, we don't have a sense of self. So take a deep breath. Is there anybody who would like to share? You don't have to share the name of the person that you have a difficult time setting boundaries with, but just say like their category. Are they a friend? Are they a relative? You know, does anybody want to share like out loud? And don't forget, if you share out loud, your voice will be on the video, okay? Have I got any volunteers?
I don't know how to do this. I can see you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Sure, go
Okay.
ahead, Julie.
Two of them. One is a friend and one is professionally with clients. So just, yeah.
And what do you do?
Oh, for clients, I say yes. And I struggle. 75% of the time, 25% of the time, I have really hard boundary. So it feels more like a wall. With the friend, I don't even say yes. I just let her drag me. And I have to say, I ended the friendship. I put such a thick wall because I couldn't do it, but I'm really interested in learning. Like, I didn't learn anything from just leaving. I didn't learn
Okay.
about, right?
Okay. So you avoid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you either say yes, no boundary, or you avoid a wall.
Totally.
Okay, you lose your voice in both of them. And
Okay.
that's the number one clue that your boundaries aren't working, when you're losing your voice.
Okay.
You know, you can't have boundaries without having a voice and without having a sense of self. Okay. So anyone else want to share?
I'll share.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Sarah.
For me, it's my son. And when I wrote down, what is it like my behaviors around it, I find that when I have a hard time with him, I either shower him with love or I compliment him. It's almost like I feel guilty for the feelings that I have, which are some resentment, some frustration. So I think that that's the number one person in my life, and it's timely because I'm about to spend a week down with my son, his wife, and their baby, taking care of the baby. So I thought that this workshop would be relevant and just the shot in the arm that I needed.
Oh man, I totally hear you. I totally hear you. So you want to say no, or you want to speak up about something, but you don't do it. And then you overcompensate because you're feeling guilty.
Yes, in a nutshell. And then the other thing, just to add to that, is that before I speak up or say no, I go through this whole kind of crazy back and forth in my head of what's reasonable for me to want.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's a great big hole in the trying to find boundaries. That's a great big marker, because we don't know what's reasonable. That's how we developed poor boundary systems. We didn't know what it was our right to want, and we didn't know what it was we were supposed to be doing for other people, because they weren't clear for us when we were growing up.
That's right. And that continues to be the crux of it, because it's that internal dilemma around when am I being selfish and focusing too much on myself versus when am I being too altruistic and too generous at the expense of myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Uma, can you take that slide off? And then I just want to see everybody. Oh, perfect. Great. Hey, Kat, welcome. So let me tell you, I think I'll go with this one. No, I know what I'll do. I'll do this. I've got so much I want to show you guys. And usually I spend a whole day with this workshop. So have you ever heard the word codependency? Okay. And have you wondered what codependency means? All right. So what codependency means is you, or whoever has codependency, is dependent on others for your opinion of yourself. You're dependent on people pleasing. You're dependent on others telling you what it is you should want or shouldn't want. That whole people pleasing thing. Just imagine, if the word says it exactly, you are dependent on other people's opinion of you. And as children, that's all we knew how to do. As children, we didn't have enough of ourselves. Ourselves came from how our parents or our caregivers reacted to us. And then we made decisions about what was important by that. If you were told your feelings weren't okay, then that's what you realized. Oh, okay, my feelings aren't okay. I can't trust them. There's no way you teach a child feelings by saying, look, every time you see one of these white things, That's a feeling, okay? There's nothing to show a kid and say, hey, this means feeling. What a kid has to get is what's going on inside them. So on a very simple level, a parent may say to a child, oh, if that happened to me, I would feel so mad. Or if that happened to me, I would be so sad. It's like you help the child identify what's going on with them by giving them the clues about this is what is appropriate to feel with this experience. And then a child learns to trust what's going on inside of them. And then you teach them language for that. Okay, it's an evolution. But if you've been told all your life that feeling's not okay, I'll give you something to cry about. Buck up. You don't need to be doing that. It's not all right to feel that. Then you constantly look inside of yourself and say, okay, I'm doing something wrong. It's not working. Or if you got a mom and dad that can never be happy, maybe you've got an active alcoholic parent, and it doesn't have to be that severe. You're constantly trying to make mom or dad be happy, because if they're happy, then you're going to be safe. And if you can't get them happy, you keep feeling like somehow you're being inadequate. Or you watch other kids with their parents and they seem to be enjoying each other, and that's not what's going on for you. Your home is scary or hard to be in, or sometimes scary, sometimes hard to be in, confusing. Okay, it doesn't have to be big, huge trauma, okay? It's all on a continuum. But if you get mixed messages about what's okay for you to feel or not to feel, that teaches you that you don't get solid information about who you are. The two big words, I'm going to move this slide up, Uma, but you don't have to bother. We can show it later. The two big words are should and want. Should is always somebody else's stuff. It's a rule you learn from somebody else. Want or long for is coming for your truth. That's what you need to memorize, those two words, want or long for. I long for, I want. I'm going to take a guess about what Sarah just said about her son, because I can go there with my kids. I long to have a peaceful relationship. I long to be honest with them the way that I am with my dearest friends. I long for that. I don't want to be in the dance anymore. I long to have enough self-confidence or self-esteem to say my truth. Boundaries come from your truth, and your truth can only come from you knowing who you are. Shoulds, whenever you're shoulding, you hear that, don't should on yourself. Whenever you're shoulding, you're coming from somebody else's stuff. Okay? It's always somebody else's stuff. Guilt and should go hand in hand. Guilt says you broke a rule. You should have done something you didn't do. You broke a rule. You always have to identify what's the rule that I think is here. So I'm going to make this up for you, Sarah, because I can so relate. So the guilt is, I should always love my children. We should always be getting along just swell. It should always be wonderful, me and my kids, because that's the way it is for good mothers. And for God's sakes, I'm a therapist who works with families. I should know what the hell I'm doing here, right? So we've got those rules. And if we break those rules, then there's something wrong with us. And we owe. Rather than, my kid is being inappropriate with me, or my kid's being unreasonable right now, or my kid and I need to talk this out because this isn't working for me. And we both can we both can agree to disagree, but I don't have to try to turn into some magic Cinderella, Pollyanna for my kid. But if I have these good mothers always or good fathers always rules running in my head, I'm constantly in some kind of battle around that. Does that make sense? Take a deep breath, everybody. And it's the same thing like with employers. It's not just relatives that we have a hard time with. We can have a really hard time with employers, with any kind of authority figures. Okay. So I want to give you a look. We can put this one up. Uma, the no boundaries one, the damage boundaries. You put that slide up, hon. I just love having the magic lady of the technology. No boundaries. Whoops, let me give you the no boundaries ones. Here's no boundaries. You've got nothing around you protecting you. You have no words that you use to protect yourself. Okay? So what happens when you don't have any boundaries? You're not safe on the planet. If you don't have a no, you're not safe on the planet. If you don't have a no, all of your yeses are whatever, whatever. They're not real. They're just not real. Can you identify with that, Julie, with your client? If you're saying yes when you don't want to say yes, what you're saying is whatever. Okay, we got a way of just kind of like, all right, not sure I want that. Or the uncle gives you a hug when you don't want one, and it's like, oh well, whatever. I need to be kinder. I should be nicer. Everybody else in the family think he's okay. All right, that's no boundaries. The other kind is damage boundaries. They have breaks in them. For some people, you have no difficulty saying no. For some people, you have no difficulty saying what's true for you, what's not true for you. But for others, you end up not having any boundaries. So they're damaged. It's not a constant. It just depends on the person and what's going on with that personality. So we've got no boundaries or damage boundaries. Then when we don't have any boundaries, when we don't have a no, we put up walls. Walls are not boundaries. Walls are hideouts. Not answering the phone, not avoiding the person when you see the person, hiding out at the house, not saying yes to life, not allowing all that life has to offer you because you won't risk anything. You won't try things because you don't have a no. So you put the walls up. There's a zillion different ways that we use walls to avoid what it is we have no language for. This robs us of so much relationship on the planet. And then, like I said about the damage boundaries, there are boundaries that can kind of go, well, it's a little different than the damage boundaries, but you can go between no boundaries and walls, no boundaries and walls. No boundaries is you let people walk all over you, and then you can get really angry at yourself or angry at them. Why do they ask me this kind of crap? Don't they see how busy I am? Well, they ask you the kind of crap, or they ask you to volunteer, or they ask you to get so involved because you never say no. I mean, part of that thing where people say, if you really need something done, ask a busy person. Well, lots of times that busy person has no damn boundaries. They don't know how to say no, but then they feel overstretched and overused, and they haven't taken care of themselves. So then they put the walls up, and walls can be illness. If I get sick, what can people expect of me? If I hide out at my house and I don't come out, if I get depressed, what can anybody expect of me? This can cause a lot of illness. Illness can be walls. And I'm not saying this is always the case. I'm giving you the examples. Sharon, you have your hand up. Did you want to say something, honey?
Well, I just wanted to ask a question if I can.
Absolutely.
That something just happened just now. Like, I'm really listening to this workshop. I'm really interested in it. I didn't want to miss a word. And then someone who I really care about dearly, a dear friend, called me and wanted to talk to me. And I told her that I was doing a workshop, boundaries, whatever. And she said, oh, okay. And then she said goodbye. And I feel so guilty, and that's what happens to me all the time when I do a boundary thing.
When you do something to take care of yourself.
I feel so bad. Yeah, when I just.
All right, I want you to give me another word for bad.
I feel, I don't know it. I don't know what the word would be.
I'm going to take some guesses. I don't mean to be rushing you.
No, go ahead.
Selfish?
Selfish, shame. Um, ba- I don't know what else. You tell me.
Guilty?
Guilty, guilty. Yes.
So guilty says you broke a rule. And I'm going
Yeah.
to take another guess what the rule might be. And the rule might be good people show up for their friends.
Yeah. I mean, she's so good to me. So wonderful. Oh my God. I feel like crying now. I'm sorry.
No, you don't
Yes.
need to be
You
sorry.
hit it. You hit it right on the nail on the head. That's it.
Okay, and what I heard you say was, without saying it, I can't talk to you right now, but I will later. You just postponed it.
See, I didn't say it quite like that. I guess, yeah, maybe I did. I don't remember.
But I just
Okay.
want you to tell yourself that, okay? So later on, we're going to look at the language we can use when we're setting boundaries, and that's one of the languages you can use. You can just say, I can talk to you later. It's going to happen in a couple of hours.
See you later. Okay. I wrote that down. Thank you.
But what that includes is, that includes you in the value. She has value to you as a friend. Her kindnesses and support for you has value for you, and absolutely. And you need to have value for yourself. We need to show up with as much value for ourselves as we do for everybody else.
Yeah. Well, that's a hard one for me.
All right,
Thank
let's
Thank
change
you.
that one. So codependents or people with poor boundaries have difficulty experiencing appropriate levels of self-esteem. This comes from the mother of defining facing codependency, Pia Mellody. Okay, um, experiencing we have trouble experiencing appropriate levels of self-esteem. We have difficulty setting functional boundaries. We have difficulty owning and expressing our own reality. We have difficulty taking care of our adult needs and wants. And we have difficulty experiencing and expressing reality moderately. We have a hard time with moderation. So I know what has gone on for me for years. I'm a lot better at it now. I think my husband would agree than I used to be. Certainly not a finished product, that's for sure. But I would say yes, 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 get way overtired. And then somebody would say, pass the salt. And it's like, what the fuck? Be all worn out, be all overdone. And then I'd blow up and it'd be like, oh my God, she is as crazy as a loon. That's the yes, 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 yes. No moderation. And then blowing up or getting depressed or feeling like it's too much, it's too hard. Everybody wants everything from me. Without boundaries, you don't have a reality about who you are and what you long for and what you want. Take a deep breath. I'm seeing some nodding. Anybody relating? Anybody want to share? You want to share? Rebecca, go for it.
Yeah, when you were just reading this last one, the moving back and forth between walls and boundaries, I'm like, oh, good Lord, that's where I'm at. But I just had an example of its boundaries. Like I set up some pretty good boundaries with my sister Bonnie. She's not scared to say no or what she's doing. Um, I don't either. But there's a couple things that I've noticed through my life, and this just came through like a lightning bolt in my brain. When somebody tells you, "Oh, you're so good at that," and then they ask you to do it, like one of the things I could say through my career through work, fighting certain types of legislation for its workers and stuff in the state house, they would always come to me. I never said no. I would take vacation time off from work to go and testify and do stuff like that and fight against a bill which they're trying to shove through again already. So, I would always say no and I would dread it. I would like, oh, I hate going up to Concord. It's always
Oh,
like,
you mean you would always say yes?
always say yes. Always say yes. When the union would come to me for something, I always said yes because I felt it was my obligation, which is another word, obligation, because I had such a good job, a good paying job, but one of the things with boundaries though, and this is a big one, and you'll probably understand this. I signed up to do this walk. It's a virtual walk for the American Cancer Society in April. It's 40 miles in 31 days. Very doable. So Lisa Natoli, which a lot of you know, she just, boom, she was so excited, sent an email and a text, and all this stuff. And she wanted me to do this virtual 13.1. I thought she meant 13K. She meant 13.1 miles. And you have to do it all in one day. And I was like, and she wanted me and Bonnie to do it with her. You know, we could set up the route and do it physically, and all in one day, 13 miles. I'm like, you're going to kill me. I'm not on the Camino again. And so I had to tell Lisa no. And Bonnie did too. And that's a hard thing to tell Lisa Natoli no. When Lisa asks you, you know this. So that was where the boundary thing, and that was a huge thing. But she wrote back the most eloquent response to that and said, I love how you honor yourself on this. So that was just a big lesson I just had, because I literally thought, oh, I don't need to do this class today. Boundaries. I don't need to. I have boundaries. But now I'm listening to Irene. I go, maybe not. So.
Well, boundaries is kind of like going to the gym. You can't just do it once and then it's all done. You kind of work on them. And you'll find different people in your life that'll challenge them more and more and more and more, right?
Right. And that's what, and that's what I said. When Lisa asked for something, I always say yes. And this was one of those things where I struggled with it. I struggled with saying no, even though knowing I could not do 13 miles in a day.
Or how about I don't want to?
Yeah, well, I would if I was like 125 pounds and I walked 10 miles a day, but I'm not there. You know what I mean?
I want to show you a little graph because that's a great point. Okay. So in order to do it, right, you had a lot of like, crummy feeling about it, right? And it was scary to make that phone call or whatever you did, or give the email or whatever to say, I'm not going to do it. Don't want to do it. All right. That had a crappy feeling to it. But now you feel really good about it. There's a lot more good feeling afterwards. Like I didn't get myself in that mess. I'm not having to do something I don't want to do. I'm not feeling resentment. So it's an uncomfortable feeling initially. And then there's a whole lot of good feeling afterwards about what you did for yourself. Or we can reverse it. You can say yes when you really want to say no, and you can have just a small amount of good feeling because you didn't say no, and a whole lot of crap feeling because you're doing what you didn't want to do, and you're stuck out on some walk someplace you don't want to be. And even though you might have a couple of nice moments, it's not how you wanted to do it. So there's going to be a whole lot of being upset with yourself for not being truthful.
Yes.
So we either take rip the bandage off right away and just do it, and then feel some relief because you had a whole free day to do the things you wanted to do. Or we're so afraid and we're so avoidant of that uncomfortable feeling that then we have this whole crappy experience. I can think of people who have worked with me in my office who have said, I don't want to go to that party with the family, or I don't want to go on that vacation with the family. They always do it every weekend. I give up my Labor Day weekend because that's what the family does. And I'm sick of it. I don't want to do it. They all drink too much and I don't want to be a part of it. Right. It doesn't mean I don't want to be a family, but I don't want to give up my Labor Day weekend anymore. Right. So they couldn't say no. They go and they're miserable for the whole weekend. And they're just judging everybody for their drinking, them judging themselves for not doing it, and then they have the experience of doing it the opposite way and saying, doesn't work for me this year, I'm not going. Okay. And then they had the whole weekend. And they would come into the office and say, I can't believe the freedom I felt after I'd have a little bit of waves of like guilt, but then the freedom I felt that I took care of myself. Because when you're an adult, nobody else is going to do it. You have to do it. We couldn't do it as children. We had to do what we were told. But as adults, we can learn, what do I want? What do I long for? Making sense? Okay. Anyone else want to share? Oh, Bonnie, I see you down there waving your hand. If I'm missing anybody, help me here, Uma.
Thank
We
you,
also
Irene.
have Julie and I think Julie and Karen after.
Okay, go ahead, Bonnie.
I was just gonna say, it goes back to what you were saying about no boundaries is you're not safe on the planet. And what I discovered is, I mean, I certainly have plenty to learn about boundaries, but I have set some in the last couple of years that, and what I discovered is I've been doing 12-step work for children of dysfunctional homes.
Mhm.
What I discovered is when I want to say no, it's that little child, that hurt, abandoned, whatever little child inside of me screaming, I don't want to do this. And if I say yes, I'm just to put it in different words, I'm not honoring that person inside of me. And that plays a huge role in how safe I feel in this world. Because if I'm not taking, just like you said, I know I'm just repeating what you said, but
No, but repeat it, that's fine.
but because if I don't, it's like it can be a subtle thing. Like, can you give me a ride to the store? It doesn't have to be a big thing. But if I'm doing it when I don't want to, that dishonoring chips away at my self-esteem and my self-worth and my feeling safe in my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm grateful for today. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for that share. Absolutely. What we're saying to the little girl or little boy inside of us is we're saying, shut up. You don't matter and you don't count. They're important. Just shut up. No, you don't matter and you don't count. They're important. That's what we're doing. And we can feel it. It feels like a sting. It just feels like an ouch.
Yeah.
Karen, go ahead, sweetheart.
Yeah, so I'm running into this with an apartment. So I have to get a new apartment. All right. And my neighbor said to me, oh, the guy next door has a house. He's got an upstairs apartment. You would be living above a 78-year-old man, nice man. And the guy who owns the house is a nice guy. Okay. I don't want to call him. And the reason is, and somebody called me on this the other day, said, you're afraid of men. And I had to really think about that. Well, of course, it's why I haven't really dated. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is that I'm afraid that I won't stand for what I need. In other words, like if the guy below me, the 78-year-old guy may be a very nice guy, right? But if he plays the TV too loud at night and I can't get to sleep, or, he does something, he has an attraction for me and he asked me out on a date. It's like, ooh, right? And I don't know how to say no, and how do I have a boundary? And it's been a real problem around dating. And the other piece of that with dating is I went on some dates when I was in New York City, and the guys, they don't ask permission. One guy had been drinking too much and he pulls me close to him in the cab and he starts kissing me all over. And I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I did not want to hurt his feelings, right? And that's my father. I did not want to hurt his feelings. My mother kept telling me, don't hurt their feelings. Don't hurt your father's feelings. And so I can't speak up for myself. And this guy is like all over me in the cab. And I wanted to say, and I put my head down. I was demure.
Karen, I just want to tell you, that's the #1 reason why women get raped. Because they hesitate for those few seconds not to hurt their feelings. And in the meantime, they lose all their power or all their ability to push. I'm not saying it's women's fault. Don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying we've been trained for that. And so that reluctance makes the woman lose those few seconds that she needs to protect herself. And when you go into like physical training to protect yourself from rape, that's one of the first things they teach you to get over, and that's a hard thing to get over because it's been, how long ago is it ingrained in you?
Since a baby, since a child.
Yeah. And are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Okay. So if I told you, stop using your right hand now, stand up for yourself and use your left hand, you wouldn't just learn how to do it like that. because using your right hand has been ingrained in you. That's the way it is for all of us. It can be that way for men too, not just women. You've been taught that you need to be kinder, you need to be nicer. Their feelings are more important than yours.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I've had it with women too, but the man thing is enormous. Yeah, it's enormous.
So healthy boundaries would be, if you had healthy boundaries, and I know you have them in lots of places too.
Yeah.
So healthy boundaries would be, well, I have a no. I'm going to go over and meet the guy and see what my gut tells me about him. I'm going to go feel the apartment and see if it's any place I want to be. And if it doesn't, I'll know it. I'll just know it. I have enough experience that I'll know, yeah, this isn't work for me.
Yeah.
Or if I have any question about it, I'll just think, nah, that's all right. I don't even know what the questions are, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need walls. Like, for example, if you're in an alley, right? This is an extreme example, but if you're in an alley and you feel danger in the alley with somebody approaching, you don't say to yourself, well, is it a gun, is it a knife, maybe I need to say no, let me meet him first, let me figure this out. You get the hell out of the alley. You don't hang around to find out. You don't need a boundary then, you need a wall then. Sometimes walls are very important, okay? But they can't be the only thing you use, or life doesn't work. It never gets juicy for you. It never becomes something that's choice.
Yeah.
No matter what religion you are, or no religion or whatever, I think even atheists can admit we were given free choice on this planet as animals. We're not just driven by instinct. We've been given free choice, but it's only if we use our voices and use the free choice. If not, we become victims. Did you finish, Karen? I know I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I got it out and so did you. It was good.
Okay, all right, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Dave, oh, no, wait a minute. Julie was first, right? Julie, go ahead, Julie. Where are you? I lost you. Oh, there you are.
I'm right here. And Karen, boy, everything you just said just made me bawl. So thank you for sharing. I just wanted to say, going back, through Al-Anon, I learned a lot of, that's where I started my serenity, right? And I learned about boundaries, and it helped me to end friendships that weren't good, and to choose me and to have some boundaries. And now, since that's happened, I am, during freaking COVID, like I was literally ready to like date and start meeting new people that I wanted to spend time with, that I wanted to go hang out with, not all my other, bad boundaries, no choice, and just saying yes, relationships. So I'm an awkward mess, and I feel I so am. I mean, look, I'm great at a party. I'm great. Look, I can go in a room and I can jazzle dazzle, but I'm and have a great time. But and then of course, Karen talks about dating. It's like, oh, that's real. I can't razzle dazzle, and I can't run away. I have to actually sit there. And I am so afraid in terms of the dating thing. I have such walls that I don't think, I'm afraid that I won't know that I am in an alley with a guy with a knife or a gun. And for me to say that, I can protect myself. I can protect all of you. I am a Boston badass that could, rip a head off a lion, is my thought. Is my, like, when I need to rage, I can rage and I can do it all. But I don't want to live in that extreme, right? So I'm trying to.
So that's one of the signs. That's one of the symptoms, is not knowing moderate reality.
There we go. Wrapped it up. Moderate reality. What the hell is that? And
okay,
tell me where to go.
I want you to take a deep breath. Okay.
Yeah.
I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to tell me, how old is that part of you that is terrified that she's going to get hurt by a man, that she's not going to know how to say, no, I don't want to play?
The one, it's kind of the one that came right up, is like the 20 something that was really violent. in bars, in lots of bar fights with lots of men and women, because I was out of control with alcohol and really hadn't found Al-Anon yet. So the one that just was sort of free and letting things out, and I don't know, she's a little, like, I don't want her to come out. She's so long gone. I'm 50, for Christ's sakes. She's so long gone, but
Well, I
She
think she was controlled by somebody much younger.
yeah,
Okay, and
Yeah.
she needs your compassion. All right, she needs your compassion, because what she had were these violence is walls. Violence is walls. Okay,
Yeah.
so there are no boundaries, there were walls, and we can go and like vomit all of our spray, all of our anger and rage on people, you know, because anger is always on top of fear or sadness and hurt, because there's a vulnerability in there that's being completely walled off that won't go out. Like in my home, I couldn't be vulnerable. I had no way to protect myself. I'll be
Right.
damned if I'm going to be vulnerable out there.
well, yeah.
I want you to say something. I want you to
Okay.
practice something, and the others can practice this too. You said, I'm terrified to go out there and date because I'm terrified that I won't know what I want. Or that it's an okay guy or whatever, okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I want you to say, I long for a partner.
Damn it, Irene. Sorry, I've been saying that now for about a year.
I want you to
And
breathe into that. I long for a partner, and breathe those words in.
that doesn't feel safe sometimes.
I want you
So
to practice it. I long for a partner, and breathe it in.
I should not have come here today.
Just try it on, babe. I long for a partner, and breathe that in. Can you say it out loud, hon? What's coming up for you, sweetheart?
When I am about to say it, those wonderful, comforting walls come in and say, oh, that's no, just stay over here. I'm so close. And yeah,
So
it just,
all I'm asking you to do right now is like go to the gym and try some sit-ups. Nothing, you don't have to go call somebody up on Match right now, okay?
yeah, that ain't.
All I want you to do is face the
Okay.
fear that's coming up inside of you, which is very, very historic. I long for a partner.
I long for a partner.
Breathe in, honey. Is that your truth?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, honey. That's the beginning of learning your truth about yourself. Then the next truth that comes up is, it terrifies me to set myself up for vulnerability.
This is true.
It terrifies me. So that terror has to be looked at, and you can't smash through it. You just have to understand it. Why wouldn't, I mean, I know a lot about your history, okay? Why wouldn't it terrify you? Why wouldn't it? Of course it does. When I married David, you know, everything inside of me went, what are you thinking? It was so hard to get out of my first marriage. Like, are you out of your flipping mind? You know, it's just like buyer's remorse when you buy a house. Like, oh, what a great idea. What a great idea. Oh my God, what was I thinking? We all panic afterwards, right? So then a way to walk through it, honey, is first you recognize it. And you know me, I'm going to ask you to do some journaling about that fear and that terror.
Yes.
Listen to yourself, say it out loud. I long for this. Feel what comes up inside of you. And then when you do take a date, make it a safe one, like a cup of coffee for an hour at Dunkin' Donuts with 700 other people in the restaurant. You know, so
Believe-
in your own car, and you don't give them your address, and you give yourself
Right.
plenty of space to get the hell out of there.
Only if Karen will do the same.
You,
I'm just
you guys,
kidding.
you guys can double date on Match, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you, Irene. Thank you,
You're very
everyone,
welcome.
for the
else?
time.
Who else wanted to talk? I don't want to miss any. Oh, Kim, go ahead. Oh, David, you after Kim. Go ahead, Kim. We need your sound. Uma, can't hear her.
Okay, Kim, I'll just ask you to unmute yourself through the thing. I think it's just you have to
Unmute. I got it.
yeah.
Good,
Okay.
good job.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I have a question, Irene.
Sure.
You know a little bit, just a little bit about my background, and you've told me before that I have a high tolerance because of the way I grew up in my family and such.
You have a high tolerance for inappropriate behavior.
Yes.
Okay.
And so boundaries are a big part of that, because I feel that like you're trying to be healthy and have a healthy no to somebody. This healthy no to protect yourself in a way that you're trying to protect yourself in a standard where you know it's healthy. And what I found myself sometimes up against is when in my past I've said, no, I don't agree with that, I'm not doing that, then I've had someone in my life who's been very manipulative and abusive. And you say no to somebody who's like that person who is manipulating, abusive, and they make you manipulate you even though you say no. They make you feel guilty for saying no. And it's kind of like, what do you do in that situation where you have a high tolerance, you're up against that, you're working with that, you say no, and you're trying to be healthy, and then this person that doesn't have boundaries is making you feel guilty for saying no.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So guilt says you've broken a rule. So let's just think of the person you were talking about. What's the rule that you feel that you're breaking? Was it a relative? Was it a spouse? What was it?
I'm still battling this divorce separation still. And it's been a roller coaster. But I was thinking of a time, it's really simple. I felt uncomfortable with him using some of my things because I didn't like the way he treated some of my things. So I would say, no, I don't feel comfortable like that because you can't even treat your own things in a way I appreciate. So I would say, no, I don't want you to use that or do that. And every time I said no, I was fully manipulated and I was selfish and I was this horrible person because I said no and I set my boundaries no.
But you weren't able to hold on to them.
But till this day, I said no. But to this day, I'd still called, I'm selfish for doing this and I'm selfish for doing that. And you question yourself like, well, was I a bad?
I question myself.
You
say I instead of you. Because when you say you, you're pushing it over here, okay? You're taking it in. So I'm going to show you 3 ways to deal with stuff that's coming at you. All right?
freeze. Someone says something to me that's beyond, like, I freeze. Like, I can't even respond sometime if someone hits a boundary.
Right. So I'm going to show you 3 things, and I think we all can look at this, all right? So when stuff comes at us, like you're selfish, you bitch, you don't share and I share everything with you, okay? When stuff comes at you, you can hold it out here and you can ask some questions about that, okay? Or you can hold it out here and you can tell yourself, maybe not out loud, this belongs to them, it doesn't belong to me. Or you can inhale it and try to make it your reality. I am a selfish bitch. And the problem without boundaries is that's the only one we ever choose. We suck it in and suck it in and suck it in and suck it in. And then it's doing all this inside of us. And we're trying to make sense out of something that doesn't belong to us. It belongs to him. Are you a selfish bitch? You know who can decide that? You're the only one who can make the rules for that. Do you see yourself as a selfish person? Do you see yourself as somebody who doesn't share? Do you really hold his opinion of you as the be all and end all? That's what you have to ask yourself. And then you have to set up walls. If somebody violates your boundaries, that's what you need walls for. Take a deep breath. But that's that whole business of, I don't know who I am. I'm going to let you tell me who I am. I'm going to accept your opinion of me. That's where guilt comes from. That's where shame comes from. I don't know me. You do know you, Kim. Ask your friends, do they think you're a selfish bitch?
No, no, I don't see that at all. Like my mom always tells me I have so many nice friends, and
Why do you have them, hon? Because you are a nice friend. We have, and hanging on to our truth is difficult. The toughest thing we do in relationship, whatever it is, with our children, with our employers, with our clients, with our lovers, with our spouses, the hardest thing we do is be in the relationship, show up for the relationship without losing ourselves.
that's what I did. I lost myself in this.
So you had to put up a wall to get some space.
Big walls.
Right, because I had to do that with an alcoholic first husband who beat the crap out of me. And the way I got out of that, I was only a 3-year marriage, but the way I got out of that was telling myself my children did not deserve to be raised in violence. I had no idea I didn't deserve to be raised in violence. It was like some 20 years later when I got into recovery that I realized, wait a minute, I didn't deserve to be in violence. I didn't know that because that's what I grew up in, but I knew they didn't deserve it. It's very hard not to lose ourselves because the rules were I was in a Catholic marriage and it was supposed to be forever, or I was damaged goods. And what was God thinking about me? Right? I mean, we all have to go, maybe not to that drama. Sometimes these are little dramas, okay? But anything that robs you of yourself and your truth, it'll wear on you like rot in a foundation. So
it's like find that balance, I guess, to say of some the high tolerance aspect, and you kind of go whatever, you're whatever, and you have that attitude whatever, but it's that balance between the high tolerance versus what is normal and what is healthy.
And balance is the key word for health because it's always right in the middle. It's always right in the middle.
But where's the middle when you've come from violence? And where's the middle? Like, you don't like, okay, I'm finding that middle. I'm trying to find that middle.
And to trust it.
Yes.
To trust your truth about yourself. I mean, literally, you can ask a friend that you really trust and say, is it true that or a question like, do you see me as a selfish bitch? Is that how you see me? Am I missing something here? And my guess is your friend's going to say, no, I don't. Sometimes we just have to go to the people that we trust and feel safe with.
I did. He used to tell me I'm spoiled. You're so spoiled. And I asked one of my friends I grew up with, and I said, am I spoiled? Like, do I act spoiled? She said, no more spoiled than I am, or was,
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay. Had to go with it. So it's like the boundaries things come in on all of this aspect of high tolerance versus balance. And you're saying no, and you're trying to say no, and then someone manipulates you. And so it's like a whirlwind.
Or you take a deep breath. You take a deep breath and you say, what do I long for here? What do I want here? And I need to remember that I matter and count. Okay?
Thank you, Irene.
And we're not going to do it perfectly out of the box. Dave, you wanted to say something? You need your sound. Can you get it on?
David, I'm asking to unmute through Zoom, so there should be a little pop-up that says the host would like you to unmute your mic. So if you say yes to that, then it should unmute you.
Okay.
Dave, just,
There you go.
you
There
got
you
it.
go.
You got it.
Can
You
you hear
got
me
it.
now?
Yeah.
Okay. For what it's worth, I wanted to respond to Karen about the old guy in the prospective apartment that you're looking at. There's two possibilities, right? It's not a place you'd want to live, or it could be the most wonderful place you could imagine. So my suggestion is knock on the door, be very businesslike, not warm female. Oh, I'm thinking about this apartment and I'm not that familiar with it. So would you mind if I just ask you some questions? And make a list and talk to him about the area, the house, the noise, just very businesslike. And you'll get a reading just by what he says and how he says it. If he cuddles up to you, hey, sweetie, or anything else, but you have the ability to find out what you need to know by actually going up and talking to him. So that's my suggestion.
It's a great place to start. Thanks, David. Rebecca, did you want to talk? Did I see your hand, hon? Oh, you're just telling Dave thumbs up? Okay, Kat, go ahead. And then we're going to do some journaling, guys, because God forbid I let you get out of here without journaling.
Okay. Of course, now I have a frog in my throat. So I identify with everything everybody's talking about. And of course, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I've got that one handled. Ha ha ha. Two things that are, well, one that I have not ever figured out is I have these girlfriends. I love my girlfriends. I do not have to know how to get off the birthday ride. Okay. Which is the birthday ride is that if I'm a good friend, I show up, we go to a restaurant, I spend more than I want to spend. And it's almost never at a time that I want to go. Now, this year, I thought I solved it. And this is where I mess myself up. Okay. I suggested this friend shows up for me for everything. And there've been several times I haven't been able to show up for her birthday because of health reasons or whatever, being out of the state. And this year, because of COVID, I said, let's go for a walk on the beach, socially distanced, outdoors. And then maybe we'll go to Woodman's afterwards and get something to eat and eat at the picnic tables outside. Everybody went for it. Okay. Started out with like 3 of us and turned into 7, but everybody went to do the thing that was my idea. And I didn't want to go when it came time to go. I didn't want to go. It was cold. It was March. I was like, I don't want to go. How can I talk them out of it? Nobody was willing to. Everybody was up for, I don't care how cold it is, we'll go. And so I made myself go. Is that an operative phrase right there? I made myself go. But then, because there were shoulds, I should show up for this friend. But then I was happy I went afterwards. So now I don't know if I trust my own barometer, because I was super kicking and screaming inside about going. And then I was super elated that I went afterwards.
So what was the motivation under the super kicking and screaming?
The motivation?
Yeah. What was talking to you?
I just want to stay comfortable. I like to be warm. And then a couple other people were part of the scenario that I don't really enjoy being around. They're okay people, just sometimes a little bit too nutty for my taste. So it was just that. It was like giving up a Saturday afternoon. Laziness. I think part of it was laziness. Is that a justifiable motive?
Well, I just wonder, Kat, I think one of the things that's happening to us with COVID and stuff is that we've gotten so used to like hiding out it's almost hard to, like, have you ever had the flu? And then when you're better, you're not sure you really want to go back into the world. You kind of just got used to being hiding out. So I think for all of us, there's this point where you have to kind of push through this hiding out, this like being in the cave, like it's, oh my God, I'm going to have to get dressed. Oh my God, I'm going to really have to take a shower. It's going to have to put myself out there because there's something seductive about all this like cave stuff. And we have to look at, and I'm longing for connection. I'm longing for a connection and I'm getting stuck in this. I mean, we're always having to check ourselves out, hon. But you did feel good about it when you made the plans, right? You weren't making the plans out of, I don't want to do this and I'm saying yes anyway.
No. In fact, I suggested that we wait a month because it was February when her birthday was. And like, it was like the parting of the Red Sea. Everybody who normally has to have their own opinion and do stuff, they just all went along with it. And it was like, okay, now I have no excuses.
So then I have to remember, for me, I really liked this idea back when, and it did come from me. So now I got to get out of my inertia and go out there and be a part of it. I think commitment talks to something too about us.
All right, there's one other piece of it, which is, and I think I have made my peace with it, but I can't get out of one of these things for under $50, no matter what, whether it's a restaurant, whether we go to Woodman's, whether I order my own food, pay for it separately. I can't get out for under 50. And so this year I said to myself, how often does this happen? Like 3-4 times a year? Just plan on it and stop resenting it. Because there's a should inside that I shouldn't spend that much money.
And what's that rule?
I don't know. What's the rule? The rule.
I want you to look at it. You need to look at the rules. And when we look at the rules, we have to ask ourselves, is this my rule or is this somebody else's rule? Where's this rule coming from? And when you say my rule, is it a current rule or is this something coming from the past that I'm living out of now and it doesn't work for me? I mean, at some point we have to come home to ourselves. I think commitment is different than, with this thing with the birthday stuff. There was a commitment you made, but you made it out of your truth when you made it. So, fear can start coming up and nibbling at us, when we've made a commitment and then you win and it really worked. I mean, it's not always going to be, a home run, but you're the one that, and if it's not a home run, you'll learn in the future and say, you know what, I'm going to be getting myself out of this, taking everybody out for dinner on their birthday, because I'm not enjoying it. I'm going to figure something else out. I mean, some things we learn just by doing it and finding out, that's an old tradition we have and I don't like it anymore. Or I'm really glad I have that old tradition. I got my ass out of the house and I really had a good time. And you know how you judge things like that? When you left it, did you feel enhanced or did you feel drained? When you're doing stuff out of shoulds and you leave the situation, you can feel drained. Like, ugh, why did I blow my money? Why did I waste my time? What was I thinking? It's not a satisfying feeling. But when you leave something, like it sounded like you had a good time, you felt good when you left it, you felt enhanced, then you're participating in something that matters to you.
I don't want to take up too much time. I just realized there's a should about I'm irresponsible with money. Okay. And there have been lots of times where I've been grandiose and spent too much money in other ways. Okay, so I've got this should that I need to be careful with my money. And you reminded me that even, 20, 25 years ago when I lived in Boston, it was a bigger group of people. And it was, about the same amount of money 20 years ago. And we would go to these big brunches and, and it was like, I remember saying to my husband then, how do we get off this ride? Because I'm not quitting until it's my birthday and I get treated, But I realized I could have budgeted in a different way, be a little more restrained in other ways and allow myself to spend this money on something that I was always had a good time at those things.
Okay, so I want to take the should out of that. I don't think it's a should that you're irresponsible with money. I think it's an old story that you're buying. That's not a should. That's an old story that says, I'm Kat and I'm irresponsible with money. And I think you want to come home to that story and take a look at that. If you really do believe you're irresponsible with money, then learn how to get responsible with money. I don't believe that that's a complete truth because I know how you're living right now. And I don't believe that you're so irresponsible with
Yeah,
money.
but this is the new me. The old me was,
Well, then talk to her.
okay.
Talk to her. But that's not a should. That's just an old story. And we have to look at our beliefs. Okay, we have to look at our beliefs and say, where did I get that from? And is that true about me today?
Mm.
And it's not true about you today, or it's not your intention today. You're not going to, that's not what you want to be today. So learn how not to be that. All right. Was there someone else I missed? I love all of your honesty and your sharing, guys. It's really valuable. Don't you think that we each learn from each other's stories and what they have to share? Because I do. You remind me what it is I want to tell you. So before we go into a little bit of a journaling thing, I just want to introduce, this is the victim caretaker triangle. Okay, I know I gave this out last month about relationships, all right, but I think it's important. So for most of us, well, no, for all of us, we learned communication and how to be in a group or how to be with other people in our families of origin. And for the overwhelming majority of us, we learned that there were only three spaces we could be in that communication. We could either be a victim, an abuser, or a caretaker. And only one person got to be on the base at once. So very often, if there was, a parent could be seen as the victim. Poor me, you kids are driving me crazy. You're so much work. I would have had an easier life if you weren't here. Or you watch a father be not nice to a mother, so you put her in the victim spot. Or you see a mother be not nice to a father and you put him on the victim spot. Or you see a sibling being overpunished by a parent and you put them on the victim spot. The abuser is the one that the family's pointing the finger at. You're the problem here. You're the one that caused the issues. You're making us all crazy. Or the caretaker is the one that's trying to fix things, make things better for everybody. We all do all of it, but there's one of those roles that we play out way more than the others. So in my family, there was violence. Okay, so I saw my mom as the victim, though somehow I didn't see me as a victim because I had a stepfather who kicked the crap out of me. I didn't get that. The one I hung on to was the caretaker, like I had to take care of people. And I saw my stepdad as the abuser. I never saw, I saw, so we kind of get locked into those places. So if you get being wrapped up in the caretaker idea about myself, that's what I was, to say no to people felt like I was being an abuser. Really kind of crazy, kind of all or nothing ideas about these roles. Like to say, I can remember when I first started looking at this stuff, I had a friend who was really good at taking time out, taking herself to the gym and taking good care of herself physically. And I always thought, oh, she's so self-absorbed. I don't have time to the gym. I'm too busy running the planet. I'm too busy taking care of people. I've got too much responsibility. I mean, that was just like, it was all or nothing, all or nothing. She had a way more balance in her life, but I saw that as selfishness. Lots of times in the beginning, when I was looking at this stuff, I saw anybody who made a choice for themselves as selfish. And I didn't want to see myself as selfish because that meant I was an abuser. And that put me back looking at like my stepfather, because his needs and wants were the ones that everybody was taking care of and dancing around. Anyway, I just want you to notice these roles and which one you play out in more. Which one do you go to? So you can take that one off now, Uma. So what I want you to do is I'm going to give you a few minutes and I want you to look at that person that you're having a difficult time saying no to or speaking up to, that we talked about right in the very, very beginning. And I want you to just write about what your experience is with that person. Or write about your experience with any of those roles that I just showed you. Or anything that's come up for you right now with what we've talked about this morning. What's rung true for you? What's been hard for you to hear? If you had any ahas. I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to write. Okay, we're going to have some music on. And when I ask you to write, just let whatever wants to come out of you come out of you. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about anything. Just let yourself go there. Listen to you. Because the whole idea with these workshops is to give you some information and to stir the pot so that you can start having really good conversations with you. All right? So I'll come back to get you when the 4 minutes is up. Keep the pen moving. So take a deep breath, finish up whatever you got going on. Just put your head up when you're ready. Is anyone willing to share any of their writing? Nadia, we haven't heard from you. Is that something you're comfortable doing? You don't have to. Don't forget your voice will be public.
Of course, I can do it.
Okay.
Well, my experience is that I never can say what I truly feel or want because it isn't safe for me or my children. I always feel he's got the power, and the only way not to lose my kids is if I fight or if I resist. But that is not the way I truly express myself. I've always been and alert or swallowing or fighting and resisting, which is not a way I really want to express my truth. I have found that my illness or body pain is the way I have found to avoid people hurt or him abuse me. I would really love to stand with my truth and get out of these two patterns, which is hurt myself to avoid hurt people's hurt.
So have you been going on with a chronic illness?
Yes,
Oh.
yes. I'm out of it, but I'm in. This is what in through this process I found it was the only way I could get myself out of a place in a country that I didn't want to be. It was the way to resist abuse, but at the same time, it's not the way to
Have a life.
yeah, it's not a way to have a life. No.
Are you just beginning to realize this? Have you known it for a while?
I think I knew it in a theory way, right? But I didn't have the experience to feel that truth. And I could say that the chronic illness, the gift that gave me is to really have the visceral experience that my brain, my mind, it was like there was no other choice. Either I cause myself pain, then I can resist other people's abuse, no? And now I'm working to find another way, but I can see there's a tendency and as well because pain, that was the reason I left my kids in Argentina, right? And there's a lot of guilty because at the same time there's no more energy to fight his father to be able to be with my kids. It's just there's no more energy. Fight is not my truth, and pain is not hurt myself is not my truth either. And I'm in a forgiven process, and it seems like if from the distance from him, I'm able to grow in a better relationship. But it seems like I needed that distance for me to
Sure. And whatever is going on, it's only for today.
Yeah.
Today you don't have the energy or the strength to change it, but it's only today, and we need to stay in the day. because everything changes, everything's possible to change.
It is very true.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your sharing, honey. Thank you. Anyone else want to share? Feel free. No? No one wants to share? Bonnie, go ahead, honey.
Thanks, Irene. I hesitate a little being reminded I'm being recorded, but I got a lot out of hearing people, everybody, of course. And I want to specifically thank Kim for her courage to talk, because it brought up stuff. I'm actually still, I made me very aware of my brother who died in August yesterday. We went to his gravestone to pick, or we went to his grave to pick out a stone, and hearing Kim speak really just brought to the surface. He's dead, and I still have all that feeling around the bullying, manipulative, that I allowed myself to, you know,
Accept or
yeah,
take
yeah,
in or experience?
yeah, and so that's a pretty powerful thing, isn't it? I'm not even alive anymore.
And there's still fear about it.
And it translates to others, to my other people, authority figures, even if it's not a boss, even if it's just strong people. They might be kind, wonderful people, but they have a strong strengths, and I just came to realize just like around my brother, I start to shrink. So it's powerful. Thank you.
So just one.
Everyone, thank you.
Thank you, sweetheart. There's just one very physical thing you can do around strong people that put you in that place, is like find some physical distance. If you have to be like in a room with them, or you have to be in an area with them, make sure you're standing up. You're not sitting down and like they're standing above you, and make yourself have some distance. Like, for example, I can be a bull in a china shop. I know you're all shocked. And my husband can be a lot more passive energy wise than me, right? So when we were going through couples counseling and that, and we were learning about, in Harville Hendricks, about maximizers and minimizers. Maximizers do blah, 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 and minimizers go like this, right? When stuff's coming at them. So when we were learning how to like express ourselves without him getting lost and without me feeling like a crazy person, so we were told like sit on different sides of the room to have the same conversation. Like rather being on the couch, like right near each other or right in each other's face. If I would move to the other side of the room and David moved to the other side of the room, I could still have my big mouth going, but he didn't feel anywhere near as intimidated by me. And we learned how to like just back off. That physical energy can make you feel so much safer. And have a noticing in your body when you're around people that feel threatening to you. It's not about leaving the room. I mean, they have to leave the room, obviously, if they're dangerous. But if it's just you who can't find your voice, find where you stand in the room or where your place in the room is, that you can still be in connection, but that you don't lose yourself. Just practice it with like not the most dangerous people in your life. Does that make sense? I wish I could have you guys here because I'd demonstrate it with you.
No, I understand. Thank you.
But you can physically, like I have a really hard time if I'm around anybody who's actively drunk. I have a really hard time because my first husband was an alcoholic who beat the crap out of me. He was drunk. So I can't be in that close proximity to them. I gotta like move back. I mean, if I have to stay in the room with them for whatever reason, and trust me, I don't do that very often, I gotta find a space. And I can't engage in a lot of conversation with them because that's gonna be like, I'm gonna feel like they threw a net over me and they drag me into that swirl. I mean, we are energy. That's all we are. People are, I mean, every cell in our being is energy. And that energy can be hard to be around if we've got trauma inside of us. Thanks for sharing that, Bonnie.
Thanks, Irene.
I can totally relate. Anyone else want to share? And okay.
We've got Rebecca and Karen, and then we have the next section after that.
And Michelle. Okay, well, I got to get going here. Okay, Michelle.
Well, I was going to just listen today, but I should have known better. So I feel like I have pretty good boundaries around people for the most part, but I have one person in my life that I guess you could say I have a little trouble with, and it's my dad. And he lives in Florida, and he's a drinker. And like you said, it's hard to be around someone that's drinking. Well, he'll call me at night and he'll be drinking. And usually he's quite messy when he's drinking, and he's crying, or he's talking in circles and repeating himself over and over. And it's gross and yucky, and I don't want any part of it. So what I do is I don't answer the phone after a certain time of day when he's calling, which I'm hearing you say is a wall, but I'm feeling like it's not, because I mean, I've tried to tell him not to call me when he's been drinking, but he doesn't hear me. And one of his issues,
go ahead.
One of his issues is he literally has hearing problems. And the other issue is he really has listening problems. So he can't hear and he can't listen. So it's like, why even bother trying to bring it up? I just won't answer the phone, and it's easier.
So that's a wall, but we need walls. When, don't misunderstand, walls aren't always bad. You just need to know when you're using a wall. We use walls when we're talking to a boundary violator.
Yeah.
He can't hear. He's not accountable for his behavior.
Yeah.
He's responsible for it. But so when he's not drunk, I think I would give him a call that said, Dad, when you're drinking, it doesn't work for me. You know, when it's not that I don't want to talk to you, but I don't want to talk to you when you're under the influence. It doesn't work.
I've done that. And he stopped calling me at night it was a few years that he didn't call me at night, but slowly he started doing it again. And about a month ago, I made the mistake of answering the phone. And I mean, he was just a big bucket of a mess. And, I just wanted to hang up.
And you can.
And I can't, because I love my dad and I'm all he has, and I have this responsibility.
No, you're not all he has. He also has alcohol.
Yeah.
He's chosen that to have a relationship with, okay? And you don't accept unacceptable behavior.
Right.
And it's not that you have abandoned him. You've just only accept him with appropriate, a boundary would be, I'll call you back when I know you're going to be sober, and I'll touch base with you. I'm not abandoning you, but I'm also not going to abandon myself.
Yeah, that's what I do. I usually just call him back the next day and say, I saw that you called last night. What's going on? And half the time he doesn't even remember that he called me.
Right. Because he's having a relationship with alcohol. And don't misunderstand me. That wall's perfectly understandable.
Okay.
We put locks on our doors. I mean, that's understandable, honey. Okay, thank you. Rebecca, you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to respond because at the time no one was really responding. But when you ask like what has rung it's true today, the name I had wrote down at the beginning of this was my son and his wife, and then I got to realize that that's not even the boundary I'm talking about. I love the 4 stages of boundaries. When you brought that up, I could spend hour on that. And how I've been in all 4 of those roles. But I wrote down here, realizing at this stage of my life, and it has been a gradual change, to say no, to honor myself and know it's all good. What was the reason to not say no before? So I wrote, disappointing somebody. That's your number one thing. Maybe I will show my truth. People pleasing, knowing that who else would do it. So then that comes on to the caretaker role. Being the caretaker, I have been all my life, the referee, the moderator. The role has not served me well, and I'm glad it's coming undone. It is in my nature, though. Remembering what Bonnie told me in one of our sessions that we had, that it's okay to not take care of everybody. She told me in one of my sister does like this healing stuff, and she had said to me, she said, and this at first was hard to take because it's my sister, we're close anyway, but I felt like she was seeing into me. She was feeling this because I let her feel it. And she said to me, she goes, it is okay to not take care of everyone. You don't have to take care of anybody anymore. You don't have to make plans. You don't have to take care of anybody. So she said, you can stop.
So you've made a great segue into my next session, okay? Karen, I'm sorry I've run out of time, all right? I hope you don't feel, we'll see if there's a couple of minutes at the end here, if it's something you really, really need to talk about. So the next session is, how do we own this? How do we own what we need to set a boundary with? And what's the language that we use? What's the language that we can possibly use to set a boundary? All right. So the first word I want you to look at is the word surrender. All right. Surrender. That's step one in AA is surrender. I have to realize that I'm powerless over something. Michelle just talked about being powerless over her father's alcoholism or his alcohol abuse, all right? And there's nothing she can do about it. And if we stay playing in the game with those people, if we stay in that, not game, that's not a fair word to use, but if we stay in the experience of talking to a drunk dad at night, there is no loving stuff that's going to come out of that for her. She's going to feel used. She's going to feel angry at herself. She's going to feel resentful of him. You know, it's just a crappy, she's powerless over it. And it makes our lives unmanageable. If I feel responsible for the world and I'm not willing to surrender my caretaker role, I build resentment after a while. I exhaust myself. I use up my valuable energy taking care of other people, and then I get resentful. My life, I lose joy in my life. I need to surrender that role of caretaker. There's something we have to surrender with this whole people-pleasing thing. And that's something I'd like you to own for yourself. What do you need to surrender? We need to surrender that to the idea that we're powerless over other people and their behavior. And that sucks. We want our kids to be happy and we want to figure it out what's going to make that work. We always want to be in love with everybody. We want that people pleasing thing. We have to surrender that. Or we have to surrender the idea that we're a nice guy, a nice gal. And maybe sometimes we're not seemingly nice to people when we have to say no. No is a big, big loaded word. So I'm not asking you to do it now because we don't have the time for it, but I'd like you to look at whenever you say yes, when you need to say no, I want you to look at what am I not willing to surrender. There are family, you know, I had this magical picture of how the perfect family would look. Well, the perfect family wouldn't look like my kids wouldn't agree with me, or not necessarily agree with me, but we wouldn't all be the happy, happy family all the time. Well, we're human beings and we're not the happy, happy family all the time. And especially as my kids became adults, they have to walk in their own path. They have to walk with their own pain. Like Rebecca said, who's going to do it if I don't? I don't know. I might have to trust the universe. I might have to trust that somebody's going to find power that they don't know they have if I get out of the way. When I stopped doing the experiential weekends, and it's not exactly like I'm never going to do another one, but when I stopped seeing them as I had to do them 3 or 4 times a year, I was doing these experiential weekends. The feeling was, well, there's no other therapists around that are doing that. Well, guess what? Other therapists will figure out how to do it. Somebody will step in to fill the void because that's what happens on the planet. The universe abhors a vacuum. If we step out, somebody who needs to learn it or do it better will step in. There are no vacuums. They always get filled in. And I think that's a hard business for people who are aging like me. It's like feeling like, well, if I stop doing it, who's going to do it? Don't know, but I do know somebody will. If I don't stop trying to make my kids' life pain-free, who's going to do it? They will. They'll figure it out for themselves. So I want you to look at the word surrender and what is it that you will be surrendering if you start setting some boundaries. I know what you'll be gaining. You'll be gaining a much better sense of yourself. So here's some of the language that you can use. You can copy down these cheats. Number one is, these are three. No more complaining, explaining, or blaming. When someone asks you for something that you don't want to do, or you need to get them to change a behavior, you don't complain, explain, or blame. Because whenever you do that, what happens is you're trying to find the right thing to say that they're going to say to you, oh, I get it. Oh, I'm so sorry I asked you to do that for me. Oh, I'm so sorry that I don't know, that whatever I'm doing is upsetting you. I really understand. Duh, what was I thinking? That's not going to happen. There's no amount of language you're going to come up with. A no is a no. A no is a no. It doesn't need to be explained or blamed, but here's ways in which you can say the no. You can say, that doesn't work for me. Just doesn't work for me. I don't have to tell you why it doesn't work for me. I don't have to make you wrong because you asked for something or you want something from me that I don't want to give. Okay? I don't have to give you an explanation because it's never going to be a good enough one. All I have to say is, no, that doesn't work for me. And one way to do that is a plus minus plus strategy. Thank you for asking me to the party. That's not going to work for me right now, but I appreciate that you thought of me. Some version of that for whatever you're up against. And you repeat that no more than 3 times. And then the conversation's over. But if I try to give you an explanation or a reason why it's not going to work for me to do that, it's not going to happen. Because then you're going to give me a yeah, but, and we're going to be in this tangled web. But why can't you go to the family party? Thanks for asking, thinking of me. It's just not going to work for me that Sunday or that holiday or that afternoon. And I really appreciate you thought of me. End of story. That's all it has to be because you're that valuable. Anybody want to, I've got like 5 minutes if anybody wants to practice that, or Karen, I hope that made sense to you all. Can you take that slide down so I can see everybody? There you go. Thank you. Let me just, Karen, do you still want to say something? Do you still want to share something, Karen? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't have to if somebody else has something. I was just something that I wrote about men. So I don't know if anybody else wants to share, if there's something more imminent.
Who else really wanted to share?
I have a question.
Sure, Karen. Oh, Katie. All right.
Yeah. So maybe I need to hear this again, but I'm wondering, how do you distinguish between a boundary and a wall?
Oh, okay. There's no negotiation, or well, there's no like, there's usually no language with a wall. But the language could be, well, the language can be a lot of rage. Rage can be a wall. Silence can be a wall. Distance can be a wall. Tell me the 2 things you're thinking of that you're having a hard time to discern.
Well, I just keep thinking about what we talked about earlier this month, right? That I've been really strategic about when I communicate with my mom. but my excuse has been I've been really busy with work. And so, and that's the first time that I heard the difference between, just having a wall. Like, that's not a boundary, that's a wall, right? Because right
Well,
now
is
work,
it a lie?
is it a lie?
Would you find time for someone else that was talking to you about something that you wanted to talk about?
Say that one more time.
Well, when you say to your mom, I haven't called because I've just been too busy. All right. Is that really why you haven't called? Or, like if it was somebody you wanted to talk to, would you have found the time to talk to them?
Yeah. So yeah. So I have an answer in my head. Sorry, I'm a little foggy this morning. So it's just the notion of like, I don't want to speak to her right now because I don't have that much energy. And I know that if I call her, I might just get even more drained.
So when you talk to your mom, it's not enlivening, it's draining.
Mm-hmm.
Is your mom cognitively able to understand that issue that you have going on, or does she have Alzheimer's or something and it's really hard to be in that conversation with her?
I have not been in that conversation with her.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm saying, what keeps you guys from having that kind of an interaction? Is she not capable of understanding where you're coming from?
I just haven't had that kind of interactions with her.
Why? The reason I ask is because when you can't have those kind of conversations, there's a lack of intimacy in your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And you're burying some part of you that you're not willing to show her. And there can be real reasons for that. I had a mom who had Alzheimer's for 15 years. She couldn't get through. I mean, it just she wasn't going to hear it, or not capable of understanding it or whatever. But if you want to have some intimacy with your mom, then maybe there's some ways in which you need to stop hiding from her. But you're the only one that can say if it's valuable for you or not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are judgments you have to make yourself. Is this making sense, guys? I mean, these are judgments you have to make yourself. If your mom leaves the planet tomorrow, do you wish you had gotten to know her a little bit better? Or is that just not going to happen? Is she an unsafe person for you? But you know what? That was a good question, because I don't think I ever thought of that way until you said that.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I'm shooting my mouth off with you, I think what you have to ask yourself is, how honest am I being? How honest am I being? And one of the 4 agreements, the book, The 4 Agreements, one of them is impeccable with your language. So you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Just the first place to start is to have the relationship with you where you're honest with you. Why am I doing this? I'm sure for Michelle, I mean, you can't go to a drunk and start talking honestly. It's not safe. It's useless. You're making yourself crazy. Okay. And when he's not drunk and I want some closeness with him, maybe I share, Dad, when you're drinking like that, I don't want to talk to you. I love you, Dad, but I don't love you drunk. And maybe she just needs to say that. Or people have given up. Maybe he's so senile now, he's not going to hear. You have to make that decision for yourself. I don't know what your relationship is like with your mom. But I know that when we're setting boundaries and they work, we feel like we've been true to ourselves. And that's the most valuable thing that you want, is truth with yourself. We don't have to be cruel about it. What I just said before, like, thank you for asking. That doesn't work for me. And I'm glad you thought of me. End of story. Was that helpful, Katie?
Yeah, it's helpful. I think knowing I think what you started with, like the no language, the no communication, like that helps.
Okay.
Yeah, and your questions, I'm thinking about them. I don't really want to get into it.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. Karen, I got a couple of minutes. Do you want to share something, hon?
Yeah, Irene?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got, I just had to turn this off or I had to do something. Yeah, so I had written something and it was about the victim caretaker thing, and I was always the caretaker. All right, but what my mom, I'm just going to read it, it's not too long. My mom was the abuser in my mind. She told us about my father. Poor dad, he's suffering. He's a hard worker. He's a kind man. Be kind to him. But she was tolerating his bullshit, his drinking, his catastrophes, his absences. And then she would blow, like she would blow at him. She would blow at my brother. She would blow at my sister. And the only way I stopped that from me was I was perfect. Like I was kind and gentle and I used my nice words. But what it built up in me was so much resentment and so much rage. And it was quiet rage. I mean, people didn't, I mean, you knew it because I went to therapy. But the other thing it developed in me about men was something called, what I recently saw this word, and I'm not sure it's a good word or not, but it's called himpathy. So you have extra sympathy for men, right? Which I developed about my father. And so I'm ultra nice to them. And I don't express my truth. And I don't express my truth because it might hurt their feelings, you know? And it's not even that I ever blow up at people, because I don't. It probably would be a good thing for me to blow up. But yeah, I just wanted to say that this
Well, you
whole,
don't blow up with people, but do you hide out from people?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, completely.
And you long for connection.
I long for connection and I long for a partner.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I want you guys to remember to use those words when you're journaling,
Mhm.
you know? So, you know, I'm sorry if I made you guys feel rushed, but I try to do this in 2 hours, which is when I usually take it, you know, we usually do this for about 6 hours here in my building. All right. I really appreciate all of you and your honesty and the way you opened yourselves up for this. I'm very, very grateful. Next month, I'm not going to have the workshop the last Sunday of the month because that's Memorial Day weekend. So it's the next Sunday, which is June something. Uma will tell you, or she'll put
June
it up.
6th.
It's, what is it, honey?
June 6th.
June 6th. All right. And what it is, it's 2 hours of soul journaling with you and your soul. Okay. And it's not hard. It's easy. So don't run away from the word journaling. I promise you it'll be okay. I want the whole world to pick up a pen and start writing. Okay. Anyway, so it's soul journaling next workshop. All right. The other thing I want to tell you all is I always want to start crying when I do this. We've been able to send a few $100 a month to help the women in South Africa. They are desperate right now. They're absolutely desperate. The virus is raging in South Africa. The government is about as corrupt as an effing government can be. You know, the grocery prices are skyrocketing. People aren't allowed to work because they're not allowed to gather. So the unemployment's crazy. The women that we help are I mean, literally, you and I are putting food on the table. It's rice and beans, you know. We're putting a little petrol on the junk car that Poppy has so she can take her kids to the school that they need. One of the sons is very developmentally delayed and he's in a school that's 2 hours away. He goes Monday through Friday. So we paid the tuition for that and it's helping him. He's 15 years old and he reads at a first grade level, you know, and she's desperate to find some kind of future for him. She's also, she also has a 6-year-old who's doing very, very well in school. The kids just got back to school a little bit. They go to school just like here with a little bit of hybrid. We've bought them cell phones so that they can do the schooling at home, you know. So I just want you to know there's no government taking the money from that we give. It's going right to them. The only overhead is the money I pay. MoneyGram. MoneyGram charges you to send the money. You know, that's the only overhead, and it's like it's either $10 or $15 depending the amount that I spend. So just know that what you're doing so matters and so counts. Is there something that you want to say, Uma? Have I forgotten? Oh,
Yes, I just wanted to let everyone know about the feedback form that I'm putting in the chat right now. We would love to hear what you liked, what you want more of, any suggestions you have, and then also what kind of workshops you want to see in the future. You know, give us your suggestions for topics. That would be great. Yeah.
so I thank
There
you
was
all.
one more thing I wanted to say was that the recording will be given to the registered participants. So you will get an email coming this week with the recording, so you can come back and listen to this. So I wanted to let
And
you
you
know.
all should have a recording of everything that you've ever signed up for. Okay, you all should have a recording of that. The trouble with those recordings is you can't forward them to someone else because these are going to be products on my website someday, and we're going to sell them to make more money for the women in South Africa. All right. But if there's somebody you desperately want to get the recording to and they can't afford to make a donation, just tell me, just text me and I'll get them one. Okay. So thank you all. Have a great rest of the weekend. Love you all. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Irene.